Today we've got a great malicious compliance story relating to a compactor. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, all interested parties must apply? Deal. Once upon a time, I worked as a paramedic, and during that time, decided to be a keen helper and volunteer for my service's new fancy expensive response program. Essentially, you rode around in an SUV and answered 911 calls, improving the stats because the response time to the house was faster. Then a full ambulance got there when they could. Thing is, it was lonely work. You didn't have a partner. You didn't get to chat with nurses and doctors at the hospital, and you never got to go back to base. So shockingly, it wasn't popular, and most of us decided to go back to our regular partners. Also, it required an extra training program put on by the service. But the service had promised big performance to the city investing. No paramedics on the SUVs, no program. So they decided to force those of us that had volunteered back onto the SUVs, irritating us and our partners. We had volunteered in good faith to help out with the understanding that we could go back after the 6 months we committed to. Time goes on and we're all weary and bitter and the union can't figure out how to put an end to it. A sloppy supervisor wants to try again to recruit more SUV medics and goes ahead and quickly writes an email advising that another training session is going to be run for anyone interested in the SUV program. And just so they know the numbers they have, anyone who wanted back in from our cohort must reapply. Okay, says the union, and since language in an email from a supervisor is binding, they quickly told those of us that wanted out to just ignore the email and not reapply. It wasn't how the management meant it, but just like that, we had our loophole and we were all finally free. And darn sure never volunteered for another project again. Although this does help patient response times, and it might be beneficial for some cases where there could be some light medical assistance being done at the scene, you kind of feel a little discouraged that it would be an SUV pulling up and the ambulance whenever, because most likely you want the ambulance there to get you to the hospital ASAP. Like, if I was somebody that called 911 and this SUV showed up, I would be grateful for the help and the assistance, but in the back of my mind, afterwards, I would probably be like, well, why don't they save on the cost of these SUVs, have them back at the hospital, hire another paramedic, and just have another ambulance available to come out ASAP. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of malicious compliance, why not hit that subscribe button down below? That said, our next story is malicious compliance costs company hundreds of millions and their most profitable product. So this is a story from someone I know. I've known this person for years, and while I don't work with them, I've seen the story play out more or less step by step. I know several people involved, but I'm going to tell it from the point of view of the person I know the best. So many years ago, this person, let's just refer to them as person got a really great job working for a Fortune 500 company. Not going to give any more specifics, but the company offered many benefits for their employees. They treated their employees like people and not like numbers. They offered a yearly raise to anyone who worked there. This was meant to do several things. First of all, it was meant to keep up with inflation so that employees wouldn't have to stress about money. I'm sure a lot of you know the struggle, waiting for minimum wage to be updated so that you can start saving money to hold over till the next wage increase. No, the company was ahead of the curve. On top of that, when they did start hiring new employees for more, they increased the wage of anyone with that specific position by the same amount to keep older employees from earning less than newer employees. They offered many other benefits as well. Basically an awesome place to work for. Unfortunately, it's a small town, and the company wanted to expand that specific branch of operations. They couldn't do it here, so they chose to move out. They sold the branch office building, along with the product that person worked, to another smaller company. When it was sold, the person then went with it. The old company made the new company sign a contract which guaranteed that the yearly bonus would stay around, along with several other similar benefits. New company wasn't around very long and ended up expanding as well. They did the same thing, sold the location and product to another company. Unfortunately, they didn't care as much about their employees and only treated them well because of contractual obligations. So when they sold the location and product, it didn't come with a contract. New company did care a little bit about employees, but ended raises and all of that. They would listen to employee complaints, but that was about it. They weren't around long either before the scummiest company came in and bought them out. So new company comes in and buys them out and immediately starts changing policies and shifting everything up to make everyone's jobs harder. Person and their team members got used to it and kept going. Now, here's the thing about Person. Person works on a team of specialists. There are only about 12 people on the team and a manager that's over them. Well, there was. I'll get to that. This team doesn't require any special education or anything, but it does require a several-week training course and several months of acclimation. The product is extremely delicate, and the customers for this product are extremely demanding. They more or less require perfection, anything short, and no money. You must watch every single word that you say to these customers, or they might write you off permanently. However, this is an extremely valuable product, and the company makes a lot of money from it. Or they did, at least. Let's speed forward about 10 to 15 years. The company has only found new ways to treat their employees less like humans since they took over, and are somehow getting away with it. Turnover is high, but as long as they have high school grads looking for a job, then they can keep their building full. Unfortunately, Person and their team have asked for a raise several times at this point. They were always being turned down because they're earning at market value for their position. Looked it up, and market value is determined by a simple equation that takes into account other people in your profession at your experience level and with your job title within 100 miles and calculates average wage for them. Considering the extreme specialty of this position and being located in a remote region, market value is determined by calculating the average wage of everyone on Person's team. Basically, the company was saying, "Shut up, we aren't giving you a raise." Now, something to understand, Person and their team members weren't that disappointed not to get a raise every year. However, they were now making only a little more than a new hire with the company. And there are other companies that do similar but less specialized work in the area, but start people out with a higher wage than Person is making at this point. I literally knew high school grads with zero work experience that made more than Person did. Now at this point, Person has about 20 plus years of experience working this specific product, and the least experienced person on their team had been working it for 12 plus years. The straw that broke the camel's back was an annual investors meeting that was streamed live to the entire company. Person, working on a small team, was invited to take a few hours off to watch the meeting. It was kind of a reward for them performing so well. The company shot themselves in the foot with this one, though it was already starting to go south anyways. They just sped it up a little. So to put this into perspective for you guys, the company total profit for that year, profit, not earnings, was a little over 1.2 billion. Out of that 1.2 billion, Person's team of 12 people, in a company hiring tens of thousands mind you, these 12 people and a manager brought in about 480 million. That's a little over a third of the company's total profits for the entire year. For those that don't like math, that's about 40 million per person of pure profit. Person specifically earned a little over 60 million alone. The lowest earner on the team was over 20 million. Seeing that they were single-handedly responsible for over a third of the company's total profit for the year, the entire team got together and demanded a raise. The manager actually put that in before they even said anything. Even their manager thought it was wrong. They demanded $20 an hour. They actually only wanted half of that, but since they were being lowballed and completely unappreciated by the company for the work that they did, they put in a higher number. By the way, $10 is about the amount they would have been making with their yearly bonus had it never been discontinued. As you might expect, the company being money hungry, came back with the same response as usual. Didn't even try to negotiate. They asked several more times over the course of a few weeks, threatening to quit if they didn't get a raise, and the company basically just said, "Go on, anyone can do your job." Cue malicious compliance. They didn't all quit, only 3 of the 12, which if you've been keeping up, would add up to on average $120 million over 1 year. But that's not all actually. What they did ended up turning out even worse for the company. The rest of the team all agreed to only work their minimum requirements. The company had minimum requirements that everyone had to meet. The team, up to this point, being proud of the work they put in, consistently exceeded the requirements many times over. They would compete to see who could perform the best. The lowest earner on this team often exceeded minimum requirements by 3 times over. At the end of the year, the company had to painfully explain to investors why their highest earning department was now performing at less than half of what it did the previous year. They came up with some stupid explanations. They still refused to give a raise though. Instead, what they decided to do was raise their minimum requirements. At first, the team kept up, but eventually out of aggravation, when their constant requests for a raise were denied, about half the team requested transfer off. They were transferred to other departments and replaced with brand new employees, the most experienced of which had been with this company for about a year. These new employees struggled to keep up with the minimum requirements, which kept getting raised to meet stockholder expectations. Eventually, original member on the team had either quit or transferred to another department, even the manager. This left the team with only new employees who had absolutely no idea what they were doing. They completely alienated the vast majority of their former customers almost overnight. And if that wasn't enough, because they couldn't meet the extremely high demands of the company, still only a fraction of what the original team was performing, they were either let go or transferred to another department and replaced after only a few months on the team. Even hiring several times the number of employees on that team did nothing. When they reported an earnings of $80 million from that team, the company got so fed up with it that they just sold the product to another company for an enormous loss. Unfortunately, this isn't one of those the company drove themselves out of business stories, but I still think it's pretty funny, and I like to tell it to all of my new friends. I also use it to warn anyone who might be considering going to this company to work. Honestly, you'd think that if someone earns that much profit for your company, you'd at least try to keep them around. Needless to say, this communicates that if you run a business, even like a small one, and you have somebody that is generating so many more multiple times the amount of value that you pay them, you definitely should give them a bit of a raise and make sure you keep them happy. That is just crazy to go from $480 million to $80 million. I can only imagine the amount of managerial food chain that would get fired from that kind of performance. Our next story is, get your manager here so we can talk to you about your manners. Equals, have fun looking for a new job. So, my dad had a compactor related story here. Seems fitting that I would have my own to add. My company takes safety very seriously, to the point where we have safety briefings on the regular to keep us updated. Yesterday, we had a talk on compactor safety. One of our big rules is to never, ever, under any circumstances, climb into a compactor unless it's unhooked from any power sources. Sounds like common sense, right? Well, dear reader, as you're about to learn, apparently common sense isn't that common. After our briefing, we get our assignments and are sent on our merry way. I go to my area, clean it and pull trash. As I'm walking to the compactor, what do I see sticking out of it but 2 trousered legs? After the shock lasting a nanosecond wore off, I start yelling, "What are you doing, you idiot? Don't go crawling around in there." I know I shouldn't have yelled, but I was so mad. Well, Mr. Idiot fell out and starts yelling at me, "Don't you go yelling at me, where's your manager? Get them here right now." Malicious compliance mode activated. I put on my sweetest smile and say, "Of course, I'm so sorry, let's get my manager here." Mr. Idiot smirks and is like, "Good girl." So I call my manager over and ask her to come over. Meanwhile, Mr. Idiot is smiling like the cat who got the cream. I'm fighting to keep from smiling because my manager, Miss Heroin, takes safety as seriously as I do. I've seen her reduce full-grown men to tears over safety issues. Miss Heroin shows up and Mr. Idiot says, "You should train your workers not to yell." Miss Heroin turns to me, "And why were you yelling at him?" I said, "Because I caught him climbing into the compactor and I got scared he'd be crushed." In a nanosecond, Mr. Idiot goes from looking like contented cat to looking like a scolded dog. After a sound verbal thrashing, Miss Heroin calls Mr. Idiot's manager. Within 30 minutes, Mr. Idiot was clearing out his desk, still smelling of garbage. You know what? People might say that they fired Mr. Idiot to protect the company, but God forbid, I think they fired Mr. Idiot to protect him from himself. Can't go getting himself crushed if he can't access the compactor anymore. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.